what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
There's this updated classified intelligence report that says the U.S. Department of Energy has assessed that the source of the COVID-19 pandemic likely came from a lab leak in China.
But what we're now seeing is that the Department of Energy has collected some new intelligence, according to our sources, that has led them to come to a conclusion that the lab leak theory is plausible and that it likely did come from a lab.
A couple of reports from CNN following a breakout story from the Wall Street Journal. And I want to start with an apology. We said earlier, Stephanie and I think we're usually on the same page. Not a big fan of saying, told you so, told you so, told you so. And I said I don't like doing it. I lied. Thoroughly enjoyed doing it.
We all know this.
I really do. I take pleasure in this. U.S. Energy Department, which falls under security, in effect, reportedly became the second government agency. The other one is the FBI. On Sunday, to conclude the coronavirus probably leaked from a lab. This, according to a Bloomberg take on the Wall Street Journal story, jumping from animals to human, rather than jumping from animals to humans naturally. And here's the thing. The biggest part of all this, what frustrates me the most and why we should be concerned, is that because the whole time, remember, the idea that you would think it came from a lab, and when Trump mentioned this, oh, you're crazy. You're a crazy far right-wing conspiracy theorist. Ultra MAGA. It's on you. You're crazy. And all of the news outlets, all of these liberal college journalist grads, they go to the TV stations and they're all, you're crazy. This is what we know. This is what, well, you didn't know jack. You didn't know jack. As a matter of fact, it was one of Stephanie's, somebody Stephanie's rubbed elbows with in the past, Senator Tom Cotton, Arkansas. He was the first high-profile politician to talk about the idea that maybe the coronavirus originated in a lab setting. That was February of 2020. That was over 3 years ago. Then there was the infamous incident in the White House, Jen Psaki. And this is dated, this happened, we played these comments on April 25th of 2022. So this is Jen Psaki on April 24th, 2022, not even a year ago, being asked about the origins, and she just walked out.
Jen, on the coronavirus, talking about China and the tariffs potentially coming off, can you speak about anything that President Biden has done to determine the source of the coronavirus with China?
And she gave him that look like a wife will give to a husband sometimes, like, what the hell's wrong with you? And she walked out with her little notebook. I'm not answering your question. It's incredibly frustrating because you go back to the beginning, everything if you had an idea or a different thought, the news outlets attacked you as ultra MAGA. Now, so this is, you have two very significant reports, and this affects everything. Remember, that was the whole birth. If you had any idea that didn't agree with what they thought about COVID, it was misinformation to the point. All of this over the past several years, here's what happens when you get these far left progressives wanting to hammer into what they think and control you, as they did then try controlling us. Lockdowns, we saw it here in mid-Missouri, specifically with the city of Columbia. We saw it all across the country. Now you got to wear masks. Now we're not going to allow you to do business. We're not going to allow you to have freedom of choice. We're going to make all of these decisions for you. And nationwide, specifically in Columbia, they ruined businesses because they didn't want you to make your own decisions. Hey, everybody, you have the same information. Here it is. If you want to open up to full capacity as a restaurant, you have the right to do that. And if you want to go to that restaurant, you should have the right to do that. You know the risks, but no, they made you because they wanted you to behave in a certain way. Man, it's frustrating. But to the point, because it was misinformation. You're wrong. It's a conspiracy theory. To the point.
Alluring is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster.
Remember?
Oh, this gal again.
That's why they wanted to start this misinformation. The Ministry of Truth here in the United States of America was because smart people like you were saying, hey, maybe this came from a lab. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I do kind of enjoy. I'm not saying I was right, but that we, as smart people, we're right to just question it. We're not saying we're right, and frankly, this report is low confidence, but it is the most probable. So you're hearing some different words today. 'Cause I noticed that last night. Well, some people are saying low confidence, and others are saying most likely. Comparatively to all the other theories out there, this right now apparently is the most likely theory that this escaped from a lab. So it's not me saying that I was right. It's us smart people saying we were right. By the way, there's another story, and this is actually posted from the news desk on KRCG here in mid-Missouri. City-level indoor vaccine mandates did not work. 9 cities that imposed mandates were examined, and researchers said they found no significant impacts on COVID vaccine uptake, cases, or deaths. Now, when these folks did the study, they said, yeah, we kind of expected to show, because we knew this ahead of time. We expected that these city vaccine mandates didn't have that much of an impact. But the folks that put on the study, knowing that, said, but we didn't realize how ineffective this would turn out to be. And as a matter of fact, we talked about masking kids, the long-term impacts on that. We're seeing it now. We're seeing test scores. We're seeing young kids. And I always go back to my friend Stephanie, who has 3 young children who, over the past 3, this is how, at least initially, this is what they grew up and gone to school. Now, fortunately, you were in the Southern Boone schools, so maybe less impact than what we saw in our liberal friends in Columbia. But these kids that, they're very formative years, masked, not seeing people talking and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, I definitely see a difference between my son and my middle daughter. My son was well into elementary school at the time of COVID, but my middle daughter, COVID hit right in her kindergarten year. So she basically did about half a kindergarten and then went home. And then, I think Southern Boone did a better job than most. But at the same time, there were significant periods of quarantining and everything else. So it continued to impact her schooling, beyond just that first year. And, whether it be in her reading level or her test scores or her socialization. And just as a mom, I don't know her, I don't know the other parents. I don't know, because we weren't allowed in the school. And so, it's been harder to kind of connect with the other families. It's dealing with her and her schooling is different than my son for sure. And then my youngest, of course, has never really, this is, I don't know, maybe this year is the first fully normal year. That I feel like everything would be pre-COVID, so it's crazy. And
we voiced all of these concerns. Man, you do that to little kids, you take them out of schools, there's going to be issues. There are issues now. On the other issue, the same study that says city-level vaccine mandates did nothing, they talked about some of the other things that happened. Over 90% of restaurants in New York City reported business losses, customer-related problems, losing customers over objections to these mandates. And these are all things. I'm not saying, I guess the point of this is not to say, we told you so. The point is to say, if you have friends that are liberal or progressive, I hope you share this story today. And you do it kindly. You say, listen, there were conservatives. There were a lot of smart, independent, libertarian, conservative people saying all of these things several years ago. Why don't you try this out for a while?
And I think the point is, it's America. If you have a question, we don't expect the government to tell us what to think and what to do. And we've seen it here locally. When people have a question, the government should be responsible for giving a reasoned answer with facts or support, and not just telling people to be quiet or to try to censor what they're saying. We've had parents show up in Columbia trying to ask questions, and what's the response? The response is to try to shut them up, not to address the concerns, not to explain your reasoning, not to be transparent. And I think that's the lesson here is when people are asking questions, we should expect the government to actually provide answers and not to just try to shut us up.
And I wonder, this progressive thought, the way progressives think, is it they're afraid to admit that they're wrong? Is it they know they're wrong, but they're just all about control, like being in a sick relationship? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know if if they're afraid to admit that they're wrong, or they just want to control us. 874-9390. Sean, did you see Woody Harrelson's monologue on SNL? Yes, I did. I had to, not very good, but I did. Now, I edited this a little bit to get to the point of what he was saying, because he's talking about how he likes to smoke weed, and, he's from Texas, and him and Matthew McConaughey and that whole story banging on the bongo drums late at night, bothering the neighbors several years ago. Woody Harrelson hosting Saturday Night Live for his 5th time. After you host 5 times, you get the special jacket. But Woody Harrelson, and this took me a second. I didn't even pick up on this. It took me a second, and then I got it. Check out, this was part of Woody Harrelson's monologue. He's talking about reading a script for a movie.
Leaned against a tree and started to read the craziest script. So the movie goes like this. The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea, being forced to do drugs?
The drug cartels bought up all the media, all the politicians, and that is the media and politicians that ran with this COVID and the masks work and no, it didn't come from a lab, and locked you down, like, for example, we saw in the city of Columbia, we saw nationwide, locked you down, and then told you can't come out until you take our drugs, the vaccine. It's a movie script. That is just not plausible. It happened in real life. Good morning and welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
Good to see you.
John Marsh is here.
Here, sir.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
My name is Branden Rathert. Can we give the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family a big round of applause? $260,000 over 2 days for the MU Healthcare Children's Hospital during our Missouri Credit Union 17th annual Children's for Miracle Network Radiothon. It was just incredible.
It's a record amount, and fantastic job, Brandon. Everybody, the whole team, and not just at 93.9 The Eagle, but all our stations. But an amazing amount. And fabulous. I've got a picture up on our website, kws.com, 93.9theeagle.com as well. You and Hannah and Randy and Tobler and Gary holding up that check. It's about $30,000 more than last year. Now, keep in mind, we're still technically in a pandemic. Technically, we are. I know you. I know.
According to the Department of Energy.
Well, but technically, but that's and $30,000 over. You and I were looking at the numbers from last year. It was $230,000, which was amazing. This is $30,000 more than that, actually a little bit more. That's amazing.
So thank you for your kindness over the past couple of days. We also appreciate your patience. Coming up 6:35 this morning, Sarah, Haenni, Missouri Tax Relief Now, what they're doing for an older segment of the population as it comes to taxes. And by the way, Marsh, Cole County Prosecuting Attorney Locke Thompson's here at 710. What's he joining us for this morning?
Well, we expect to hear from him, get his take on the censure and the potential call from the Attorney General of Missouri to remove the St. Louis city attorney.
By the way, she did a press conference on Thursday. It was bonkers, and largely it was dismissed as people. Andrew Bailey is going after her, and you already know the answer. Why? It's racism. That's according to Kimberly Gardner.
But what we can control is we're going to fight very hard for justice in spite of the vitriol, the hate, the racist attacks.
Racist attacks. And that is dangerous, and here's why. Because, by the way, and it's not just this latest incident where she didn't have somebody in jail, and now a 17-year-old girl's laying in a hospital bed still this morning in Missouri with no legs because of Kimberly Gardner's ineptitude. There's a whole list of things, people that haven't been in jail, prosecutors that don't show up for things. And, oh, by the way, I'm guessing Eric Greitens, our former governor, has got to be pretty happy because how she did him, how she lied during that investigation. And people, well, we can't criticize her because she's black and now because of that, because more people were afraid to do so because she is black, more people are afraid to do so. There's a 17-year-old girl who came to visit St. Louis for a sports tournament. She has no legs. because of that. Coming up, we're going to be doing your daily DC rundown. What's underneath the circus tent this morning, Steph?
Well, you like to talk about who I'm rubbing elbows with, and there's one person I won't be rubbing elbows with this weekend at CPAC.
Who is it? Stephanie goes to CPAC this week. Who is it she won't be rubbing elbows with? We'll have that coming up in the daily DC rundown about 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and
drones and kill civilians.
That's translator for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky talking about Vladimir Putin, what Russia is doing, because that's what you do. You do those kinds of terrible things when you're crazy, and then you add in, you sprinkle in a little bit of arrogance, and then that gets us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
CIA Director William Burns was on the Sunday shows, and he said about Putin and Russian intelligence services, basically he said they've got a sense of cockiness and hubris. And I thought, duh.
Really? Duh.
Okay. We kind of knew that one. But he said that cockiness and hubris is overstated, especially given the fact that the war has gone on so long, that Russia has not done what they thought they were going to do and overtake Ukraine pretty quickly. So he's saying they're basically entirely too confident about their ability to wear down Ukraine, especially with the support of some of the Western world.
I seem to recall, because it's been over a year now since that invasion happened, I seem to recall people, well, the Russia thing's going to take 2 weeks and they'll have this thing. Here we are 53 weeks later.
Yes. Also watching that conflict is China. And China, we learned recently that China's president had instructed his country's military to be ready by 2027 to go ahead and invade Taiwan. That's not, they're not saying we will, they're just saying be ready. But now folks are saying, well, they're kind of watching Russia and Russia falter on the international stage, and maybe that's giving them some hesitation and some pause about entering another conflict.
So they're seeing Russia's not doing so well after the arrogance and cockiness. 2 weeks we'll have the Ukrainian capital. So that China's looking at that and going, huh.
At the same time, they're looking at Biden thinking, maybe now's the right time, because isn't that what we think happened with Putin?
And that's the scary thing. That's the scary part. Coming up a few minutes from now, it's your Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. Sorry for the short segment. Coming up a few minutes from now, Sarah Haenni, Missouri Tax Relief Now. Efforts underway in Jefferson City to help lower your taxes. What are they doing? She joins us 5 minutes from now.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how
Liberal elite in our country, they want to impose burdens on people they don't like. They don't want to have to share in any of those burdens.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, I think he just asked a question we were asking about 25 minutes ago here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri as we look at this another report from the Department of Energy saying the most likely cause of COVID was the lab in Wuhan. This is now the second agency to say so, and we wondered, so with all this, and you look at everything that's happened because of what these progressives did as it relates to COVID, that no, they didn't come out of a lab. And if you think it came out of a lab, you're crazy. And what's the other word besides crazy that they use?
Conspiracy theorist.
Conspiracy theorist. You're ultra MAGA, as if that's an insult, which it's not, by the way. And you look at everything that has happened because of that. And so we asked the question, so what is that progressive mindset that they won't even listen to other ideas? Is it that they don't like you, or when there's new information, they still cling to their old beliefs? We heard the audio from Jen Psaki that moment she infamously walked out when somebody said, hey, what's Joe doing about the origins of coronavirus? She walked out, gave a real nasty look. And so we wondered, is it just because they can't stand, they have so much pride and ego that they cannot admit when they are wrong in a situation? Is it because they don't like you? Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis says they don't like you. As we get ready for CPAC, huge event. CPAC, what is CPAC?
A gathering of conservatives. But, it puts people on the national stage. It's, generally it's where like everyone who's running for office kind of likes to hang out. But it's getting a big snub because DeSantis is not going to CPAC.
Really?
And I guess, he's kind of known for doing his own thing, but apparently he's going to be in Texas and in California raising some money. And I was looking at the speaker list just now, and you've got Vivek Ramaswamy, you've got Nikki Haley, you've got Tulsi Gabbard, you've got Pompeo, anybody who is considering 2024 is all at CPAC. They want to be on the stage. And it's televised, and there's just, it feels like there's a million people there. Trump's going to be there. I think Don Jr. is going to be there. Anyway.
So I'm trying to think, and I love Trump, would love it if he became president again. For the GOP, I don't think he would be the best candidate to win in a national election. Probably could win a GOP primary, won't win, and we saw it in 2020. I just don't think there's no way that he would win a general because too many people hate him. I think DeSantis would be the best choice, so that's where I am, and that's where I have been for a while. Does this give DeSantis more street cred for not showing up? Or are people like, hey, we want to hear from you. You should be here. Now, again, I already have a point of view. Since I like the guy, I'm thinking this gives him some street cred because you just said kind of does his own thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But it's kind of in his character of just bucking the establishment, and he's a little bit establishment in his background, but really, and being a leader. The proof is in the pudding, and the numbers in his last election were incredible. So I think he's kind of above the law right now. Like, he can kind of do whatever he wants as far as conservative establishment goes, I think, because he did put up those big numbers and because he does have such a big following. So, other person that will be there, former Attorney General, now Senator Eric Schmidt. So that's cool from Missouri.
As a matter of fact, DeSantis from time to time will bring up in a very polite way the percentage of his votes compared to Trump's votes in 2020. Because he got more than Trump did when Trump lost the 2020 election, and that's something that DeSantis, those exact numbers that he can point to. Do we want to look at some? Maybe we'll do this before 7 o'clock. I don't know, like 6:50 or so. There are some new polling numbers as it relates to the GOP presidential primary. You want to take a look at those before you go to CPAC?
I think we should.
All right, let's do that at 6:50. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah, all of us with a big old hug and a big old thank you. $260,000 that we collected, that you raised. You did this actually over Thursday and Friday for our 17th annual Children's Miracle Network Radiothon. $260,000 in 2 days, man. Thank you so much. Big thing happening today. Governor Parson signing into law pay raise for state employees. Almost, what's the number of state employees? Let's just say Cole County, John.
I think the number they use is 14,000 and change for daily state employees who work in Jefferson City, whether they're from Cole or Boone or the surrounding counties.
And tens and tens of thousands of people that work for the state across the state of Missouri, not just Cole County, but in Montauk and Randolph and Boone and all. But just one county, 14,000 people are going to be getting a pay raise, and that was supposed to show up on their check. That'd be Wednesday, I guess, that would show up. So that's one of the big things happening in Jefferson City. As a matter of fact, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, he's going to be here 7:35 this morning. Talk about some other big things that are happening in Jefferson City. The other thing that has been going on, tax relief for seniors. Want to bring in Sarah Haenni. She is with the group called Missouri Tax Relief Now. Sarah, welcome into the show. We do appreciate you joining us this morning. And I know right now this year you guys are specifically working on tax relief for Missouri seniors. What's the biggest challenge as it relates to taxes and seniors right now?
Well, Brandon, thank you for having me on. The biggest things that are happening with seniors is that they are trying to make ends meet on limited or fixed incomes. As they age, they experience diminished health, a lot of higher costs due to those health concerns. And what's happening is their property tax bill is going up and up and up, largely due to reassessment. We don't get to vote on our assessments. We only vote on tax rates. So assessments should not be driving a tax bill up for anyone, but particularly for economically vulnerable seniors. The reason we are focused on this is because we want seniors to be treated with dignity and respect in Missouri. They have unique challenges, as I said, and we need to value them and give them the stability in their property taxes so that they can live out the rest of their senior years in their own homes.
And here's the thing, we appreciate the sentiment towards wanting to help our senior citizen population, but can we do this with without inflicting harm on tax revenues to handle other things?
Yes. Assessments go up, tax rates are rolled back due to the Hancock Amendment. Without getting into the weeds, what Hancock allows every taxing district to do is to take an inflationary increase when they roll back their tax rates. So when assessments go up, tax rates roll back, but those taxing districts are allowed a CPI or 5% increase, depending whichever's less. So they never go backwards in revenue. That's very important to understand.
All right. And so,
they will tell you that they do.
And so what's Missouri Tax Relief Now? What are you guys doing to try to help facilitate this?
We have two bills in this before the legislature today, HJR 45 by Representative Ben Keithley and SJR 39 by Senator Ben Brown. These bills are very, very similar. And if they pass, this would put an amendment on the statewide ballot to amend the Missouri Constitution. All of these property tax laws are enshrined in the Missouri Constitution, and so if you want to change them, you have to amend the Constitution. So HJR 45 and SJR 39, if passed, would simply put the measure to a statewide ballot so that every Missouri could decide on whether they want to respect and honor seniors by freezing their property assessments.
All right, and I want to correct something I just said a few minutes ago. I want to thank my friends at the Department of Revenue. The pay raises, I said, would show up in Wednesday's paycheck, March the 1st. I was only 30 days off. March 31st. Is when they would show up. Sarah, that's how we immediate fact check. Sarah Haenni, Missouri Tax Relief Now. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we let you go this morning?
I sure would. I want people to know that we have a website. It's motaxreliefnow.org. Please go there, sign our petition, and pass that website around to others that you know. We have about 1,300 signatures right now statewide, so we're on the move, and we really need more people to wake up and help us out so that seniors can stay in their homes.
Oh, and I did forget to ask you this: people that are against this, what's the number one argument for folks that are against these breaks for senior citizens?
Primarily, the objections come from the taxing districts, such as school districts, libraries, fire protection districts, saying we're going to lose revenue. As I just mentioned, Hancock protects them from that happening. But what it will do is it will limit their increases. So only in government is it considered a cut when you limit increases.
All right. Our guest this morning, Sarah Haenni, Missouri Tax Relief. Now, thank you for joining us on the show this morning. We are appreciative of your time.
Thanks so much, Brandon.
Coming up a few minutes from now. Sorry, didn't mean to hang up on you. Coming up a few minutes from now. So we want to look at, Stephanie's getting ready to go to CPAC, the largest gathering of Republicans, conservatives in America. We were talking about who she's not going to be hobnobbing with, and that's Ron DeSantis. And it's not because she doesn't like him. It's because
he's snubbing the whole conference.
He ain't going to be there. We have our hands on some new poll numbers this morning for that GOP primary for 2024. How is it looking today? We have that. Might get into this, too. Actress Jamie Lee Curtis actually liked
Believe me, if you just stay in there and you put one foot in front of the other, you'll get to where you need to go. Have courage.
Brendan Fraser winning Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Leading Role for his work in the movie. Has anybody seen this, The Whale? I've heard people, it's one of those, I haven't seen it. I usually don't have time to sit and watch TV unless I make time to sit and watch South Park and Beavis and Butthead reruns. That's what John and I do on Sundays. We get together and we watch all the South Park reruns and we eat popcorn, and John sits there and he does his Beavis and Butthead impersonations.
That's right. Cool.
While we're watching that. I don't watch a lot of TV, but apparently the folks that have mentioned the movie The Whale, it's pretty good. As a matter of fact, he wins for Best Outstanding Performance. But I thought it was cool. He says, you just put one foot in front of the other and doing the next thing. Although his advice was specifically to actors trying to break through in Hollywood, I just thought it was pertinent. Because remember, this dude at one time, he was Encino Man. Does anybody remember the movies he did in the early 90s? Some of these things and what he is doing now. Apparently, he's doing incredible work, but I thought it was just kind of applicable to anything in life. You want something and you just put one foot in front of the other. You do the next right thing and things are going to fall into place. That usually works. I'm a big fan of Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs. One of the things I'd seen he was doing in the interview, it's been several years ago, and he would talk specifically about America's Got Talent and American Idol, and these people saying, hey, you can do anything you want. No, you can't. Not always. Like, I wanted to be an NBA player. I'm 5'6".
On a good day.
On a good day.
Spud Webb back in the day.
Spud Webb, didn't he? He was like was he 5'6", 5'5"?
He wasn't very tall.
Incredible NBA player.
See, you can do it too.
I sure can.
No.
I used to, when I was a kid, since I didn't have any friends to play with me, I'd go in the backyard with a ball and a bat, and I'd throw up the ball and, hit it by myself. And then I'd do, and Branden Rathert hits his 80th home run of the year for the St. Louis Cardinals. I didn't do that stuff. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah Brian Hausworth. I am Branden Rathert. I hope you'll join us. A couple of cool things coming up this morning. Cole County Prosecuting Attorney Locke Thompson, he's here, 7:10, talking about this whole Kimberly Gardner story. And this is taking a tragic, sad turn. Prosecuting attorney in St. Louis. She's been under fire for a lot of things, mostly sloppy, incompetent work. She had a prosecutor one time not show up for a case because they were on their honeymoon. Didn't call. Nothing. I mean, she's a litany of issues. Our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, says enough is enough. Scott Faughn with the Missouri Times. He's here 7:35. One of the more interesting things happening in Jefferson City. That's coming up at 7:35. And then I'm really excited about this. Vivek Malek, the Missouri Treasurer, he's been in office for, not even 2 months now, appointed to the position of treasurer, position formerly held by Scott Fitzpatrick. So we'll talk about his duties in office, but a really, really cool story. I hope you join us for that. Coming up at 8:10 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. All right, so Stephanie needs, this is what it's like. Like, I go grocery shopping, I got to have show prep. I just can't go out and, I got to prep. And so Stephanie's going to CPAC this week. She's got to have some prep. She said one of the folks she is not going to be rubbing elbows with this week at CPAC is Ron DeSantis. How come?
Because he's snubbing the whole conference and not going. But everyone else is going, especially if they're on the 2024 stage. But we got some new numbers from Fox News this morning. There's some new polling data out, and no surprise, Trump is still blowing everyone out of the water.
He's got a pretty hefty lead.
He's got 43%. DeSantis is coming up on him a bit, 28%. That's about where DeSantis has been, but still a sizable chunk of folks are going to be supporting DeSantis. Poor Mike Pence. He's next in line, but guess what? He's tied with Nikki Haley. So she just comes on the scene. We've known Mike Pence. He's been everywhere. He's been campaigning for I don't know how many years. So both of them are tied at 7. And he's got to be like, what?
I've been doing this for a while. I'm the former vice president. Why do I only have as much support as Nikki Haley? Any other names worth mentioning in there?
Not really. Everyone else is 2 or 1. We did get another official announcement from Vivek Ramaswamy last week that he's going to run. He's not even on the poll yet, so we'll see once he gets in there. I suspect he's going to be on the lower end of the poll.
Mike Pence.
At least initially. Now he's going to be at CPAC, though.
Mike Pence already looking over his shoulder. Great. Where's Vivek now? He's been in this thing for 5 days. He's probably going to be coming up on me any minute here. We'd love to thank you for your support. Thursday and Friday, our annual Children's Miracle Network Radiothon, sponsored by Missouri Credit Union, $260,000 and some change, and probably more change coming in today, $260,000. It's something that we do every year. And I know that, things get a little different around the radio station here on the Thursday and Friday, and we know that. But we are glad that you are with us this morning. Cole County Prosecuting Attorney Locke Thompson, he's here 7:10 about that Kimberly Gardner case in St. Louis.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
We're going to newspaper. Excuse me. How can you stop the racial harassment and ethnic intimidation in your office?
Okay, that's enough of that. That was from that presser Kimberly Gardner did on Thursday. Went off the rails. Matter of fact, Brian Houseworth, one of our news directors here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, he's the news guy, and he's typically, I'm not going to give my opinion on that, and rightfully so. But he was like, man, because we're watching this thing and he's like, this is off the rails. Now, you had, remember, this press conference regarding Kimberly Gardner. This is after our Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, said, listen, you need to resign by 12 Thursday because of your ineptitude in office. If you don't do it, I'm filing this quo warrant. We're going to find out more about that with Cole County Prosecuting Attorney Locke Thompson here in a second. He apparently, so Gardner did not resign at noon. I think the timestamp on the filing by Bailey,
12:01.
He had messing around, man. And understand, I hope you understand, this is a culmination of failures on her part over the years. And when you have people, so you hear these people at this news conference, you're talking about a 17-year-old young lady who is laying in a hospital bed in Missouri this morning with no legs, because of Kimberly Gardner's failures to do her job, because of failing to hire the right people to do their jobs. 17-year-old kid in a hospital bed, no legs. And Kimberly Gardner then lying about it, saying, well, here's why we didn't do this, because one of the witnesses was dead. No, not only was he not dead, he was in court. He was in court that day. So you can just see this incredible mess that is the St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. And I think this stuff, you might be thinking, well, we don't live in St. Louis. Who cares? It matters, I think, for a lot of reasons. And to me, one of the biggest ones is, well, you can't go, she's a woman, she's a black woman, you can't go and criticize her because it's racism. And that racism came up several times. As a matter of fact, it's the same defense being used right now by the mayor of New Orleans. She's a black woman. There's a recall effort underway. And instead of ownership of your problems, instead of saying, yeah, I'm bad, I should step down, it's because I'm black. No, you're being criticized because you're doing a really, really poor job. And now here's the other thing. Here's the other reason this matters. There was a giant, massive volleyball tournament. And there's a sports commission in St. Louis. They bring in several events every year, and that brings in a lot of money. It brings in a lot of money. And now you have these people that are already kind of looking at St. Louis with a side eye with their high crime rates. And, well, you want us to go downtown and put an event in the Dome, and you've got carjackings and murders, and these people aren't getting prosecuted. Maybe we don't want to come and spend our money in Missouri. And it matters to all of us.
Matters to everybody. It absolutely does. A lot of people from our listening area go to baseball games. We just had over the weekend, on top of what you're talking about, 4 people killed. Someone ran a red light at an intersection. Folks, look at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. It's the lead story. 4 people killed in a tragic accident this weekend. Congresswoman Cori Bush over the weekend, Brandon, writes this on Twitter last night, quote, "It's disgusting that the Missouri AG and other Jefferson City lawmakers are using this tragedy as an opportunity to attack black leaders in St. Louis, to garner attention for their future political campaigns, all while ignoring issues in other parts of the state," end of quote. We should point out that she doesn't say this. The mayor of St. Louis, a progressive black mayor, said the circuit attorney has lost the trust of the citizens of St. Louis. She said that. That's what she said. She said that the circuit attorney has lost the trust But Cori Bush is saying this is about racism right now. So obviously, as you can tell, and she's also calling on the Attorney General to target the Cedar County prosecutor, which is a whole other issue. We can talk about him as well. It has to do with the Agape boarding school. But definitely racism is something that she is raising this morning out of St. Louis. Congresswoman Cori Bush.
By the way, she married one of her security guards for her campaign. And in security, Cori Bush, who defund the police. Her time since she campaigned and her time in office, she has spent well above $500,000 on protecting herself. So now this quo warranto, the legal aspect of it, wanted to bring in the Cole County prosecuting attorney, Locke Thompson, to cover this a little bit here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. Mr. Thompson, welcome in. Quo warranto, it sounds real fancy. Can you kind of bottom line this for us?
Yeah, so thanks again, guys, for having me on. It's good to be back. A quo warranto is basically a petition or lawsuit to remove a duly elected official from office. That's really what it boils down to.
So how does this work? So our Attorney General, Mr. Bailey, he files this, is resigned by noon or else, noon 01, files the paperwork. So what happens next?
So basically, the Attorney General in this case, normally in a quo warranto situation, the local prosecutor is the one who will file that. I've actually had a couple situations where I've gone through and reviewed whether or not filing a quo would be appropriate when I've had concerns brought to my attention. In this case, the petition gets filed because the person who's the subject of the quo in this case is the circuit attorney. The AG can step in and file it. So he's filed his petition alleging, in this case, essentially neglect of her office, and that she can no longer hold the office because she's neglected to fulfill the duties of that office, and she's therefore forfeited her right to be there. After that, the case gets assigned to a judge. I'm not exactly sure if they have finally assigned a judge yet. All the judges in the Circuit of St. Louis recused on this matter, which I expected would probably happen, just because they all hear cases from Ms. Gardner's office on a daily basis. So next steps will be getting that judge assigned, and then they will get a date set for a hearing. And at some point going forward, hard to say just yet when that would be, there will be a hearing on the merits on the case, and the judge will have to determine whether or not the state has met its burden.
Cole County prosecuting attorney Locke Thompson joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, talking about the Kimberly Gardner case.
Locke, talk to us about how this went. I think for a lot of people out there, go back to when the Supreme Court reprimanded Kim Gardner a couple years ago, referenced the Greitens case and all that, but the Office of Disciplinary Counsel decided not to suspend her license or disbar. How does this play into that, if it does at all?
I don't believe any of that, because I've read the Attorney General's petition. I don't believe there are any references to that prior incident, that prior action by the Missouri Bar in this case. This is all obviously that was specific to an allegation against Ms. Gardner for specific actions she took in that Greitens case. This petition deals more with allegations that her office is not doing things like trying to keep bad people in on bond or revoking bonds when they should, and just a general dereliction of duty and not abiding by things like the Crime Victim Rights Statute. All victims have a right to be heard during cases. They have a right to be at any hearings. They have a right to be notified of everything that's going on in the case. And there have been several articles that I've read that say that her office has failed to do that. And I know that some of those are referenced in the petition.
Prosecutor, we appreciate you joining us here on the program. It is fair. We should update this, that a judge has been appointed from outside the area and will hear the case. But you're absolutely right. The entire 22nd Circuit recused themselves from the case. I've only seen it once before. Maybe it's happened before. A guy named George Peach. Brandon and I remember we're going back about 30 years ago. You have to be an older person like Brandon and I to remember that case. But I mean,
thanks,
you're welcome, buddy. But I mean, he was and he was actually charged with a crime at the time. He was charged with a crime, and he eventually was removed from office. She is not charged with any crime, nor is she accused of crime, but dereliction of duty. There is something she said in the press conference. I'm not asking you to take a position on the quid pro quo, if you will, but she did say something, because she mentioned that it's the judge's fault. She tried to have this guy's bond revoked. The judges did not do that. The reporters pointed out there's no record of that on CaseNet, and she says verbally she told the judges, or her office at least told the judges, to revoke the bond. I have never seen that. I've never heard of that, a verbal telling of the judge to revoke a bond. Is that something you have seen?
It is something that can happen. I don't know what they traditionally do in St. Louis City. It did strike me as odd. I did not see any docket entries that would reflect that any verbal argument was made either. So I don't know if they just don't really update their docket entries in St. Louis City or what the reason is for that. I do know it can happen. I know it is my practice. If we are going to be trying to revoke somebody's bond in court, we always want to make sure that motion is written and filed with the court. And for the record, the only other point I'd make for our listeners here listening in mid-Missouri, in Boone County for sure, any effort by the Boone County prosecutors to lower or higher a bond, it's going to be reflected in the docket entry. It would be on the record.
Locke Thompson, Cole County prosecuting attorney regarding legalities of the Kimberly Gardner case. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
No, now that there's pending litigation, I think it's fair to all parties if I just stick to the facts.
Absolutely. Mr. Thompson, thank you for your time on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. So I like that Locke Thompson wants to stick to the facts, unlike Kimberly Gardner has been able to do in St. Louis City. As a matter of fact,
the counselor didn't say that exactly, but that is kind of what we inferred.
Yeah, he'll stick to the facts. What I'm saying is, well, Kimberly Gardner does not. As a matter of fact, St. Louis Post-Dispatch seems to share some of that opinion for me. They did a fact check on some of these things that Gardner is saying. Number one, robbery case was dropped and refiled because the victim died before trial. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, that's false. There are court documents. The dude was in the courtroom, actually, that morning. And then there's some other stuff, and her office wouldn't provide proof on her statements one way or the other. Coming up a few minutes from now, we are going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What do you have for us today, Hannah?
I got sent a news story last week, no joke, 6 times. The same story 6 times. So we're going to be talking about what I got sent a bunch of times by a bunch of different people.
Does its fascination, does it reflect being shared with you 6 times?
Yeah, maybe.
We'll find out coming up 7:25-ish on Wake Up.
together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea, being forced to do drugs?
That was Woody Harrelson's Saturday Night Live. Two interesting things about that. That was it was pretty intelligent there. Took me a minute. The other thing, it took me a minute to get what he was getting at, because he's trying to relay a story about he got high and he's going over a movie script. So going over a movie script, and these cartels, they buy media and politicians, and they lock you up, and you can't come out unless you buy a drug. Obviously, talking about progressive government officials who locked people down during COVID, and it's brilliant. I'm not going to do a movie. It's not plausible, man. What do you mean? It was incredibly brilliant. The only thing more brilliant than that was then to learn from the Wall Street Journal yesterday that the U.S. Energy Department reportedly became the second government agency to conclude the coronavirus probably leaked from a lab rather than jumping from animals to humans. Now, this is not told you so and see, we were right, but we told you so, and yes, we were right. There is that, too. But the biggest issue is what the feds have been doing, especially since January 20th of 2021. If you dare ask about the possibility of COVID being from a lab, what were you?
You were ultra mega. You were a conspiracy theorist. You were a crazy person.
They went so far, and this was because of their lies that they told during COVID. And this is what you call gaslighting. This is where they think, well, you're the crazy one to think that the idea that this came from a lab is possible. They try to make you think you're crazy for it, to the point, remember, they wanted to start.
Pondering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies.
The Ministry of Truth, the United States government under Joe Biden
Disinformation's origins are slightly
wanted to do a Ministry of Truth because they didn't like anything that questions them. Blows me away. So that was brilliant. Woody Harrelson over the weekend on Saturday Night Live, and then the Wall Street Journal yesterday saying, this is the most likely scenario. Right now, it came from a lab. But shame on anybody who thought that. And I want to go back to 2021, February of 2021. 2 years ago, World Health Organization investigating the source of COVID says it was unable to discern its origin, but calls the possibility, they called just even the possibility that the virus escaped from a lab extremely unlikely.
You know, Washington University, we talked about them a little bit because they've invited Dr. Fauci to be their commencement speaker. Well, our good friend, John Combest, pulled up an article or a podcast that they did in 2020, and they said unfounded conspiracies on social media, basically, and saying that, the most logical and simplest conclusion is that it came from nature. So they're on record for calling us all conspiracy
Coming
theorists.
up before 8 o'clock, about 7:50, there is a Biden administration official who is might even be here right now in Missouri. Who is it? Why are they here? And why aren't they? Because there's a whole lot of other places they could be right now.
Should be,
but they're here in Missouri. Who is it? How come? That's coming up 7:50. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah. My name is Branden Rathert. By the way, we want to give, we just want to shower you with all kinds of gratitude for what you did over the past couple of days during our annual Children's Miracle Network Radiothon for Kids with Missouri Credit Union. $260,000+. That's $30,000 more than last year. And why that's important is because it's helping kids. Want to bring into the show now from the Missouri Times, also hosts This Week in Missouri Politics. Dude, you see the dome on the Capitol? That's where Scott Faughn sleeps at night. He's joining us on the show this morning. Stephanie had just mentioned about Washington U and what they said a couple years ago, that we were crazy to think that the idea that the COVID came from anything other than a bat. We were crazy. But Washington University been making headlines across the state of Missouri for other reasons, too. What's on your radar, man?
Well, first of all, it is great to be coming to you live from beautiful Wardsville, Missouri, blustery Wardsville, Missouri, at the state champion Blair Oaks School's parking lot.
Very nice. Do you? Do you have? Is Millie with you?
I absolutely have the chairwoman of the Branden Rathert fan club who was very proud of your 725 What's Hot with Haenni hit with me right now in the car. Do you want to say hi to Millie?
Yeah, so Millie, let me give you the background on Millie. Scott Faughn and I a couple of weeks ago, inauguration events, and he says, hey, you got to come meet the daughter. And Millie's favorite thing on the show is What's Hot with Haenni. What's Hot with Haenni, we do it every morning, 7:25.
Well, specifically, her favorite part of the show is seeing if it's actually going to be at 7:25.
So she mentioned that, and then so the next day, the day after the inauguration, for like 10 shows, because it's never on time, and that's my fault. Never on time at 7:25.
Whoa.
That's why we say 7:25-ish.
Good job, Branden.
So Millie, it was the inspiration of a 13-year-old young lady that inspired me to change and achieve success, despite the fact that Hannah had been on my rear end about this for about 3 years.
Yeah.
It took one meeting with Millie. Millie, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. What's in store for you at school today?
I don't really know. I've hurt my knee, so probably not a lot.
Amen. That's right. Dad, I can't do anything at school today. How come? I hurt my toe. The two aren't related.
I've told her if boys talk to her, that's the leading cause of peg leg throughout all of Pirates.
Now, Millie, at home, do you have a little bell to ring when you need something so your dad can come wait on you?
The text message dings, and it's dinged several times.
Can you set up your and we'll get into business here in a second. Can you set up your text message, Millie? So when or I guess your dad needs to do this. He needs to set up his text notification so when it's a text from you, it sounds kind of like a bell ring, and I think that'd be really cool. Yeah. Millie, I have not had the opportunity to see you since our first meeting during the inauguration events, but I just wanted to thank you for inspiring to make some positive changes.
Yes.
All right. Dad is here now. Washington University. What's going on here?
Well, I tell you, it's a busy time to be in St. Louis. Usually, times of this activity are safe for baseball season, but you have a dueling situation going on. You have WashU, they've always been this way, right? They just really haven't been at the forefront until recently. And now I guess there's the debate. I'm sitting in Blair Oaks parking lot, and you'll see there's little ways you can divide, like Tashara Jones. Tashara Jones is very liberal, right? But when push came to shove, when the chips were down, she even called out one of her own, which is the real test of a politician. Anymore, all you have is primaries. So the true test of a politician is, do you have the backbone to call out your own party when it's necessary? And Tashara Jones, whatever you think of her policies and her, when the chips were down, for the betterment of her community, she stepped up. And with Republicans now, I understand why St. Louis Republicans want WashU. They have this charter school, and it's wildly liberal. But if you read on Facebook, all the suburban people say, I think they call giving WashU more money school choice. Well, WashU is one of the most liberal institutions in the state. Now, is it a wonderful, world-class educational institution, a top maybe 10 college in the world? Sure it is. Does it bring a bunch of research dollars in and do great things? Absolutely it does. It's also pretty liberal, which those things tend to be. And I think the scrutiny of the folks that are there's some Republicans like Rudy Veit. I mean, if you go through what they call school choice, you'll close Blair Oaks. It'll be closed. Rudy Veit, you ain't going to sneak one by Rudy Veit. He puts his boot down and says, no, we ain't doing that. And as the scrutinies came, they found out they have an intergender or transgender center. It's just one thing after the other for WashU. They've always been criticized because every abortionist, everybody that performs an abortion in the state that's trained is trained there at WashU.
I disagree with Yeah, but I disagree with you that Blair Oaks would close, because you're saying that, you're such a big supporter of Blair Oaks.
No,
do you disagree with the free market and allowing people to just choose? If Blair Oaks is that great, then won't people choose it, and then it won't close?
Well, the free market solution would be to sell all those public schools, cut tax, and let you just go to the private school you want, right?
I like that option too.
There you go. I mean, and I love Stephanie, who believes everything an angry suburban victim writes on Facebook.
Scott is
reality, I don't trust out-of-state people, and this is an out-of-state thing from some guy from California. And really, here's the thing: I get it. You want to make money, and I like to make money. I'm with you, but I tend to think our Friday Night Lights need to stay Friday Night Lights, not, I guess, if the charter school nerds get it, it'll be like Monday morning chess club. I believe in real Missouri quarterbacks and cheerleaders and a school that raises you to be a winner. You know, when I fell in love with Blair Oaks, I walked in there, and the old superintendent had on the walls grit, hustle, determination, work hard. You go to charter school, the posts say Black Lives Matter and everybody should get an equal portion of the trophy. It's just different. Look, I'm not saying that's wrong. If you're from St. Louis, if you're from the suburbs, you're always a victim, no matter what. You whine all day, constantly a victim. I think that's a fine way to live. That's how you want to live. They just live in those jungles of cul-de-sac ghettos. It's awful.
So there's different iterations of school
Stephanie
choice.
wants to be one.
So it sounds like you're against charter schools, but there's also kind of, this push for just open enrollment. So if I'm living in Jeff City and I think Blair Oaks is the best thing ever, maybe I could elect into going to Blair Oaks.
That's great.
Okay.
I think that's totally great. I mean, look, I'm a business person, and if you let these out-of-state people rifle through the money of the school systems, yes, they'll close rural schools. But let me tell you a secret that us folks out here don't like to admit. Blair Oaks is partially funded with St. Louis money. It just is. So is Eldon. So is let's take Blair Oaks out of it. Fatima would close. It's funded with St. Louis money. And if you let those folks come in and just rifle through the money, and Republicans, here's the thing: we rural folks are too nice. The suburban folks will whine and victim, whine, and we're like, well, I guess if it means that much to you, okay, we can do da da da. When the truth is, we don't stick up for ourselves. And I'll tell you what's going to happen if we don't stick up for ourselves. They're going to be lowering the flag at Versailles. And those kids are going to have to go somewhere else, a long way off. Now, look, St. Louis, we won't care. This California Corey that sells this school choice liberal stuff, he won't care. But I'll tell you who would care, the folks in Eldon. So, I mean, look, I'm a business person. I think if Blair Oaks has extra seats, good. If Versailles has extra seats, if Ashland, Southern Boone has extra seats, and kids want to go there, man, I'm all for that. That to me makes total sense. But to dig in and start to rifle through and listen, you could tell me all you want that charter schools are school choice, but you're telling me the one pig in the poke you can't sell this simple. Now, look, I am not a highly educated capital attorney like Stephanie. I'm just a simple white trash hillbilly. But you're telling me that the charter school is so conservative, it's wedged right in between the abortionist college and the transgender center at WashU. I'm not buying that pig in a poke. But I ain't from the suburbs, and I don't want to be.
Scott Faughn, he hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. And if you get onto MissouriTimes.com covering what's happening in Jefferson City, there's a great column last week, The Difference One Member of the Minority Can Make. And it's a fascinating story going back into the early 90s when Democrats ruled Jefferson City. It's a fascinating story. I would highly check it out. I'd highly recommend you check it out. This Week in Missouri Politics, The Difference One Member of the Minority Can Make. As always, we appreciate your time here on the show this morning. We got to cut it short there, bud. We'll see you next time.
Well, Branden, without Mark Richardson, I wouldn't be speaking to you today, which means you wouldn't know Millie, which means What Hot with Hannah would start sometime around 7:40.
Nice. I like the 6 degrees of separation. Representative Mark Richardson, who was honored last week. It's kind of what the article is about. It's pretty fascinating. Coming up just a few minutes from now, so there is a Biden administration official, and maybe right this minute, right here in the state of Missouri, some other places that he could be, maybe should be, but he's here. And what is he doing here in Missouri?
the lowest paid in the country. They deserve a raise. If we want to keep up with the government that Missourians deserve, you have to pay for it.
It's Greg Razer, Democrat state senator from the Kansas City area, talking about something Governor Parson is going to be signing today. This is the raise that goes into effect for thousands and thousands of Missouri state employees. And you look just at one county. And John, we look at the number of state employees in Cole County, roughly. What's just that number?
14,000 is what the numbers say from state complex here, and that's and then all the peripheral businesses that deal with those individuals. So it's hometown money for sure.
So ideally, you're talking about 14,000 people just in one of our mid-Missouri counties, that are going to be getting a raise. That's pretty significant. Greg Razer there talking with our news partners at ABC 17. Good morning. Welcome into the show. Meanwhile, in Greg Razer's backyard in Kansas City, somebody from the Biden administration is going to be there today.
Yep. Pete Buttigieg found an opening on his calendar. He hasn't spent a whole lot of time traveling anywhere else. And he said, it'd be fun to go over to Kansas City because they're opening a new airport terminal tomorrow. And it does look pretty incredible. I've seen some photos online. It's very exciting for Missouri. But he said, that'd be way more fun to go party it up and cut some ribbons in KC than deal with the stuff that's happening in Ohio. So he will be there. He's also, I think he's visiting like a EV battery place in Kansas. So
Pete Buttigieg, matter of fact, now that you bring it up, Steph, it reminds me, over the weekend, he was on MSNBC, and I love this because we hear this whether you're talking to Kimberly Gardner, a Cori Bush, whoever it is, that whole progressive mindset about trying to flip the script on things. He's kind of addressing criticism about his mishandling of what happened with that train derailment.
There has been so much information and, frankly, so much misinformation.
There it is again, misinformation. What's the biggest story today?
Misinformation about COVID, in that the former misinformation is actually not misinformation.
Big report came out, Wall Street Journal over the weekend. Most likely source, according to the Department of Energy, which falls under security for the United States of America, was likely the most likely scenario, I should say, was a lab. Pete's not done.
Thrown at this community and thrown at this situation that a lot of them are asking who they can even trust.
So see, because people are asking questions, it's the misinformation that's part of the playbook.
And it's so important to continue to make sure that they can get good, accurate information about the things they care about most, which isn't national politics or who looks good or who looks bad.
So the only people who say it's not about who looks bad or who looks good, the only people that say that are the ones when they have severely mishandled their job, just like Pete Buttigieg has done. And basically, Thursday, Kim Gardner, prosecuting attorney in St. Louis, almost said the same thing. It's not about us. It's about, no, it is about you, because if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Our new treasurer, Vivek Malek, has a remarkable story. He's going to be joining us a little bit after 8 o'clock to share some of that with us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
What is happening?
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
The American public deserves the truth. They can be trusted with the truth. They deserve to have the truth. That's why I think that the U.S. government needs to declassify everything it knows about the origins of COVID-19, but we need a congressional investigation.
Of course, that's our senior U.S. Senator Josh Hawley saying, hey, we need to know the truth about the origins of COVID. That statement was from last year because folks have been pushing for this for a long time. And now the U.S. Energy Department became the second government agency to conclude the coronavirus probably leaked from a lab, according to reporting from the Wall Street Journal, rather than jumping from animals to humans naturally. The FBI has also said, hey, this is of the scenarios, this would be the most likely. So the world reacting to that this morning. And it's not so much in the, well, I told you so, or we were right. I mean, there's maybe some of that.
A little bit of that.
There's a little bit of that. But the biggest issue is that people tried to make us and you, tried to make you feel stupid for daring to question the origin of the virus. And if you dared question it, you were an idiot. You were ultra MAGA, which is, by the way, is not a bad thing. You were all of these things, and that's what they call gaslighting, making you think that you're crazy for having some of your own beliefs and daring to share an opinion. Good morning and welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here.
It's good to see you, my friend.
There's John Marsh.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
What up?
My name is Branden Rathert, and we all, we couldn't cheer for you loud enough and what you did over the past couple of days during our 17th annual Children's Miracle Network Radiothon that we did for MU Healthcare Children's Hospital, along with our friends at Missouri Credit Union. $260,000+. Brian and I were looking at some bookwork yesterday, going through numbers, and a significant increase over last year.
Yeah, and last year was amazing. And, keep in mind, this is during, again, whatever, if it's called a recession or not, people are, many people living paycheck to paycheck. Let's put it that way. Last year was $230,000, which is fantastic. This year, $260,000. That's a record, by the way, and that's a more than $30,000 increase.
So it's pretty significant, and we are incredibly grateful to you, and we're grateful to have on Missouri State Treasurer Vivek Malek, appointed in January by Governor Parson, because we've got a cascading effect. The Attorney General Eric Schmidt, he gets elected to Senate, and so we have a whole series of events that are kind of falling into place. And one of those appointments, Treasurer Vivek Malek, position formerly held by Scott Fitzpatrick, who moved to the auditor's office after being elected there. So, Treasurer, let's start here. 5-6 weeks in office. Bottom line, how's it going for you guys?
Good morning, Branden. Before I talk about that, first of all, congratulations are in order for you and for Zimmer Radio Group team in mid-Missouri. You guys have raised more than $250,000 in last week's Children's Miracle Network Radiothon. And all those funds stay right here in mid-Missouri to help pediatric and adolescent patients at Mizzou Children's Hospital. So kudos to you guys, first of all.
Well, thank
you so much. It's very, very kind of you.
We appreciate that. So how goes it at your place?
Well, it has been a wonderful experience so far. I am enjoying the job. I have been a little sleep deprived. Apart from that, I have no other complaints.
Very nice. So what is it that you want to do with the office?
Just to let you know that a lot of people have not heard my name or have known me before, but I have been in Missouri for the last 22 years. I came to this country 22 years ago, first flight, 14 hours nonstop from India, and I stepped on the U.S. soil with 2 suitcases, $300 and a bus ticket to Southeast Missouri State University in Cape Girardeau to pursue my MBA. And from there to my journey today to becoming the state treasurer, 48th State Treasurer of Missouri, it has been an incredible journey. And in this office, I want to portray whatever I have learned during these 22 years about my American patriotism, about the opportunities that this country has provided me, how to pay it forward, and those will be the themes that I'll be taking forward through the Treasurer's Office. And I have knitted those themes around the 3 P's, what I call my philosophy in the Treasurer's Office. The first P, protect Missourians' hard-earned tax dollars. And as a fiscal conservative, I will maximize our returns on investments. The second P, provide opportunities for all Missourians to reach their God-given potential through multiple initiatives and resources present in the Treasurer's Office. And third, which is most important and very close to my heart, is to promote the promise of America through hard work, education, and seizing America's unlimited opportunities. And I believe in these principles because I am the living proof that led to success and a chance to serve and pay it forward.
All right, our guest is current state treasurer appointed by Governor Parson, been in office for a little over a month now. He's joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Talk to us about the call we've heard, not just from state officials, Vivek, but from people all across the state about Chinese investments in Missouri. Your agency is the one that's kind of a watchdog of that.
That is very correct. I am very much against any inclusion or any dealing with the Chinese government, with the Chinese country at this point. We have this bill going in with no buying of Missouri land in China. Absolutely in favor of that. And we will make sure from our Treasurer's Office that we are not investing anything that is pertaining to China.
We appreciate you joining us live. And I certainly remember my time in Moberly covering the Mamtech, which was a debacle. It was a scandal. That was and the CEO of that company who had some ties to China ended up going to jail over that. And Moberly, in many cases, has not recovered from that. Those jobs that were going to come up there, hundreds of jobs at the time. You mentioned when you first came to the United States, you had $300 in your pocket and 2 suitcases. $300 in your pocket. You were born in India. Nothing else but a bus ticket. A bus ticket to get to Cape Girardeau. What was going through your mind when you were on that bus?
Well, it was a very, I would say, traumatizing journey for me because that was my first flight ever in life, and that to a 14-hour-long flight from New Delhi to Chicago, and then from Chicago to St. Louis, my second flight. But I was mesmerized when I reached in Chicago and was also terrified because of the sheer size of the airport, and to find my way through that maze of Chicago airport to get to my next gate for St. Louis. But looking at America from the perspective of a person who is coming from a developing country 22 years ago, who has not seen all these big skyscrapers and all these flyovers and bridges and networks of roads, this was just mesmerizing. And it was a wonderful experience when I got to Cape Girardeau. I had a very homely welcome. I got to know wonderful people who welcomed me and took me in and made me feel comfortable. It felt like I was right there at home.
Treasurer Vivek Malek joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS. So why is it that you wanted to come to the United States from India?
Well, I have always heard as I was growing up that the land of opportunities is the United States. And growing up in India, I had always, a lot of people just like me in the same situation, always struggled, worked hard, hassled to get to some point. And I knew the potential I have, if I need to be in the right place, that I can harness that potential would be United States. And that was the reason I picked the United States. And first I wanted to pursue my education, complete my education. I went to Southeast Missouri to complete my master's in business administration. And then I went on to get my master's in law. And then I came back to Missouri and started practicing as an attorney. And I knew that I had the potential. I can prove myself, and I did. I worked with a downtown law firm in St. Louis for about 3 years or so, started my own practice as a solo practitioner, and in 12 years, we were 4 attorneys and 24 staff across 3 states. So if you talk about small business and the success story, I think I feel I want to be humble. At the same time, I also feel proud of my achievements.
And I heard too that I like the story of how you ended up serving on the board of governors, essentially the board of curators for SEMO, having come there and gone to school. What a full circle event. We recently talked to Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. He's been testifying quite a bit in the legislature. Took a little bit of criticism for that, and on our show he said, "Hey, I wish more statewide elected officials would get out and weigh in on these legislative issues." As you look at shaping that office as someone new in the office, is that something you're looking at in identifying legislative priorities for your office? And do you think there's an issue that would bring you before the legislature in a hearing?
Yes, Stephanie, thank you for that. I do believe, but my way of doing that would be a concept. So the Treasurer's Office will have a concept. We will not be for any bill or against any bill, but we will be for a concept, and whichever bill we'll be carrying that, we will be for that bill. But just to answer your question specifically, the first 5 weeks in the office, my first initiative was to increase our cap on our linked deposit program, which is also called the MOBUCS, which was rightly named by my predecessor, Scott Fitzpatrick. The cap currently is at $800 million, and we have already a bill currently in front of a committee to raise that cap from $800 million to $1 billion. And that is my first initiative that I have taken up with the legislature to increase that cap so that we can help more Missourians, more small businesses, and also increase employment through those small businesses and help them during these tough times when the interest rates are shooting through the sky.
All right, Vivek, Malek, it's cool to be chatting with another Southeast Missouri State University alumnus. Now, I didn't graduate from there, but I went there. I went there for a while. Vivek Malek, State Treasurer for the state of Missouri. Is there anything else that you would like to add? I will add this and then give you the opportunity to add anything. Next time I see you, I'd love to sit down and have some coffee, and because you talk about coming here with 2 suitcases, $300, and very little else, and now you're the treasurer for the state of Missouri. So I would love to chat with you about equity and now your reaction whenever you hear people talk about, well, equity and equality and things like that. When we see an example of you and what you have done, first plane ride ever, 14 hours from India to here to the United States of America. Would love to get your thoughts on that one time. Anything else you would like to add before we let you go?
Thank you, Branden. I am a tea drinker, so I would definitely take you on for a tea instead of a coffee, and I hope you like the teas that I drink.
Actually,
first of all.
I would love to try your teas, and here's something, Vivek, actually, and the girls here on the show will tell you this.
Brandon's a tea drinker, too.
I don't drink coffee. I drink tea.
Okay, wonderful then. That's great. Then we have something in common, absolutely. But what I would like to tell you is that in this office during the next 2 years, my top priority would be 3 things that I am focusing on. The first is the unclaimed property program. We want to increase that to make sure we return as much money to as many Missourians as possible. Currently, we have over $1 billion sitting in our unclaimed property division. We want to make sure we are steadfast in returning that money back. Second, I want to expand the More Able program, which helps more citizens with disabilities to save and cover costs for their special needs as they grow older. It does not interfere with their Social Security disabilities. A lot of people do not know. I want to educate a lot of people about that. And third, I want to grow our Missouri's K-12 program, the More Scholars program, which gives our parents more options to make the best educational choices for their children.
Missouri Treasurer Vivek Malek, we'll look forward to chatting with you. And if there's anything that we can do to help you to be of service to the citizens of Missouri, let us know.
Absolutely, Branden. And I think your word about talking about unclaimed property so that people can go on our website, and which is treasure.mo.gov, and check for their unclaimed property. If you can spread that word, we will be very grateful to you.
All right, I can do that for you. Vivek Malek. Coming up a few minutes from now, business news. We're going to do some business news for you in the Morning Bell. Business news, a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
We're going to keep it pretty basic. A lot of numbers rolling in toward the end of last week that are affecting the markets. We'll go over those, and one person who's making some predictions that I think we're going to want to listen to.
business news, little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Stock futures this morning are actually up, although they took a turn for the worse last week after some inflation numbers were being reported. Of course, I guess so we got the numbers for January. The inflation index, it rose 0.6%. And before, I think the month before, it was like 0.2% in December. So 0.6 was more than expected, and that affected the stock market, and obviously is affecting like markets internationally. People are all still thinking, are we going to have a recession? Are we not going to have a recession? Are home prices and used car prices surging? Are they not? Are they slowing? What's going on? And really, I think part of it is, with COVID and everything else, the indicators, some indicators are pointing one direction and some are the other, and it's not following, what folks typically expect when they, analyze the markets. But this is a person you can trust. Warren Buffett issued his, I'm serious, famed letter, Berkshire Hathaway, and he said, look, and I'm going to try to summarize what he said, like, look, I've been investing for half of this nation's history.
And he's done okay at it, hasn't he? He's done all right?
Yeah. Quite all right. But I really like this. So he said, I've been investing for 80 years, more than 1/3 of our country's lifetime. Despite our citizens' penchant, almost enthusiasm for self-criticism and self-doubt, I have yet, and this is the important part, I have yet to see a time when it made sense to make a long-term bet against America. And so I really like that. Like, in the short term we might hit some bumps, but in the long term I'm gonna bet on the USA.
Do you still? So here's the thing, and I've had several conversations with my dad and other people I've got two good friends, and I trust where they are with the finances, investing in the stock market. Just sock it away. But in my 52 years here, I've not seen anything like this, and I'm wondering, okay, I don't want to pull my money out of the stock market, but do I back off on how much I'm putting in right now?
We are not giving any financial advice. You should call your local financial advisor. However, we're watching the numbers.
Yeah. Coming up just a few minutes from now, this is happening. It's only 13 days away. Are you ready? We'll cover that coming up 5 minutes from now.
Has America been fair to
serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
Just because it's leftovers doesn't mean it's not good. Just some of the things that we didn't get a chance to get to on the show before we slide into my dad's favorite show on the radio station. Although Randy Tobler is starting to give Gary Nolan a run for his money. That Randy Tobler show, he's here weekday afternoons 4 to 6. And I think like everybody else, what folks are really digging about the Randy Tobler show is it's like, you've been at work all day and maybe you're kind of out of the loop. And okay, so what are some of the things that happen around town that might affect me, or what's the news stories? I want to head home. I want to make sure before I get home for the night, I know what's up. And that's what Randy Tobler does. He's here weekdays 4 to 6. Did anybody hear what Jalen Hurts, quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, said about our quarterback Patrick Mahomes over the weekend? Reese, as a matter of fact, came to Missouri. Jalen Hurts came to Missouri. Here's what he said about Patrick Mahomes. He's always been a great player, always had a lot of respect for him. Being a Texas kid, obviously, I always support any Texas kid. It's a special bond when you come from the state of Texas and you play the position of quarterback. I've always had a lot of respect for him. He was here in Missouri for the 101 Awards, which I thought was really cool. And, John, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend. There was I think it was a Facebook post. Somebody did a 5-year comparison. Patrick Mahomes' first 5 full years in the league compared to Tom Brady's first 5 full years in the league. And if you're into the comparisons, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, the now retired Tom Brady, ain't got nothing on Patrick Mahomes.
No, yeah, they say they do the math. If he has the staying power like the GOAT does, he could break those numbers. The big question is, Tom Brady was there a long time.
Long time. What do you got for leftovers?
Hey, if we're on sports, how about our Missouri Tiger men's basketballers? Another win in Athens, Georgia, 85-63, which takes the Tigers to 21-8 in the season, 9-7 in the SEC. Not too darn shabby.
No, but pretty. And Dennis Gates, I got to tell you something, man. When he came here, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Because Conzo Martin, I think, came with some fanfare. And personally, I was excited about Conzo Martin because I worked in northern Indiana whenever he played at Purdue. Very familiar with Conzo Martin. Of course, he grew up in the East St. Louis area. I was excited about him. Thought he had some name recognition to him, but he didn't translate into a successful men's basketball team. And so when Dennis Gates came, I didn't want to get my hopes up, but came from a mid-level college program, and I don't know what he's done there, but man,
Cleveland State, and he was kind of had a lot of standouts there. How many years was he there? 3 or 4 years,
something like that. So that's exciting. Steph, what do you have for leftovers?
Well, if you are a Wake Up Mid-Missouri listener, I want you to know there's a job available for you at an Ohio pizzeria. They've got a sign up. It says now hiring non-stupid people.
Is anybody upset though?
I mean, some people are triggered because apparently. So yes, they are drawing some media buzz because of their sign. But really, I mean, I think
it's that simple.
Yeah, if you can show up and you can, show up on time and you can count and you can, be not stupid, we'll take you.
That should be, I don't know if you ever get down to midmohires.com. The thing I love about midmohires.com is it's things right here in mid-Missouri. I would, if anybody that's on that website, midmohires.com, if a business who is looking for people, if you were to put in your ad just hiring non-stupid people, I'd give you $1. Guess what? You're in for a real treat. My dad's favorite show, Gary Nolan's show, is next. See ya.
Bye.